Hey, what's up everybody? In this tutorial, we're going to recreate some 3D cinematic text in Adobe After Effects. So what we're going to aim for is this kind of wizardly style, and you can probably guess what movie we're going off of here, but wizardly style text. And we're going to learn how to build this in 3D with some special fun kind of different techniques attached. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and create a new project here in After Effects, and I'm going to hit Don't Save. And to start this, I'm going to go ahead and add two folders. I'm going to add a comps folder as usual, and I'm going to click on the new folder button and add assets. Double click in there, and I have a few files that I'm going to use. I have a EXR file, which we'll discuss in a bit. I have some transparencies of clouds and images, and then a cloud stock background. You can use your own images. You could generate these with AI. You can use Photoshop brushes and then export them to get the clouds that you would like. I'm going to hit import, and I'm going to just make sure those are dropped in the asset bin, which they are. And then the next step is to make our composition. We're going to go to composition, new composition, and we're going to name this main render. All right, we want to make sure that it's 1920 by 1080. What we're going to do today is extraordinarily labor intensive to your machine. So if you're not running some sort of graphics card, or you have maybe an older machine that maybe doesn't have a graphics card, this could be a bit of a struggle for you. So with that, you may want to lower it below 1920 by 1080 for this assignment. I'm going to set my resolution to half to begin, and I'm going to set my duration to 5 seconds. Once I have my compositional stage, I'm going to make sure that's moved into the comps folder so it looks all good and nice, and let's get building. So before I do anything, I want to focus just on the title. So to do that, I'm going to get my text tool, and I went ahead online and found a free kind of wizardly style typeface here. So I'm going to go ahead and click here and type the word wizards wand. And you can see we have some work we need to do. So let's expand our properties panel by grabbing the edge of the screen. And let's just grab this and look at what we're working with. First, I'm going to pull out the tracking just ever so slightly. And I'm going to worry about the leading a little bit too. Now, by default, this is a free typeface, so it's going to be a little off here and there. But what I'm doing is just kind of hacking it together. So I'm just pulling these elements just a little closer together for the spacing. I also, speaking of spacing, want to make sure this falls within the title safe zone. So in my composition window, you're going to notice this crosshair. I want you to turn on title safe. And we're going to go ahead and move that somewhat in the center. And at this point, we can just hold our shift key and we want to scale it up. Essentially, we're looking to fit in this center rectangle. I'm going to even take it one step further and fit it into the center box because this is, again, a title to our cinematic piece. For the color, you can choose any color you wish. I'm going to go with kind of a lighter off yellow. Now that I have this ready to go, this would be a good time to save our file. So we're going to do a quick save as, and we're going to put V2. And just so, again, because I'm doing such a render intensive development here, I want to make sure it's backed up. Now, this isn't necessarily 3D. We all know that we have 3D layers here, and 3D typically means we can move it forward or away from the camera in Z depth. What we want to do, though, is unlock the extrusion aspect of 3D. So when I click on 3D here, I want everyone to notice on your composition window, you're going to typically have it set to classic 3D. So go ahead and find this little tab here and look for Cinema 4D. This is going to open up a few options. Now, again, if you have classic 3D and you open up your text, you're going to see that geometry options are grayed out. You can also access this, if you can't find it in your window, with the Change Renderer. Here we can use the dropdown, same dropdown, to do Cinema 4D. This is going to allow us to do certain things. Just understand it will also disable some elements as well, things like motion blur, depth of field. So that's something to keep in mind when choosing the best option for you. You could build 3D text in Blender, you could build it in Maya, you could build it in Cinema 4D that comes inside of After Effects. But overall, this is going to be a quick way to do it. So let's go ahead and hit OK. to activate geometry options. The next step is to open that category and look for the different styles. So let's go ahead and play a little bit with extrusion depth. Immediately, you're going to see it kind of appears to be stretching. We're not getting that dimensionality, but if I use my GUI and find the y-axis here for the rotate, I could rotate this just so we can see those edges a little better. And let's center that back up. Things like the hole depth, I tend to bring down just slightly, maybe in mid-range. That's going to be the extrusion depth within kind of the different holes of the typeface. You don't want it to fill in completely. And then I'm going to change my bevel style to concave. And right now, it's a hot mess. So the next step is we need to start thinking about lighting. How can we get this lit so we can kind of see all of the shadows and figure out if this extrusion is right for us? Now, to do that, it's really easy. I'm going to actually recommend the site Polyhaven. Polyhaven is a great site where you can download HDRI. I'll go ahead and put the link of that to that. But essentially, an HDRI file is just a high dynamic range image in which all of the different ambient light or different exposures are going to be used to light a 3D object. So here I've downloaded something called Cape Hill 4K EXR. Now this EXR file is going to help light this wizard. I'm going to pull that down on top of my image. Not much extra work to do except right click, go to environment layer on the EXR, and that's going to go ahead and start the process of it. Now, again, first glance, we don't see much change, do we? But you'll notice that you now get this little world or globe symbol on the layer name. So in my wizard wand text, I'm going to go ahead and open up the material options. I have a lot of different options here, but the ones I'm really looking for are this set of options: ambient, diffuse, etc. The first one is reflection intensity. So I'm going to pull that all the way up, and you're going to notice immediately we get a little bit of reflection of that environment map within our text. Now we can play with this quite a bit. We could play a little bit with the roll off. You can see that brightens it. We could lessen the reflection intensity if you don't want to see a mirror image. This is also great. And here is honestly where your graphics card is going to start kicking in. We haven't added much yet, but we are building a 3D text. We could add additional lights here if you have a really powerful machine. It's up to you. But I'm going to go through and just adjust some of the settings to my liking. And it's really up to you what the reflectivity is that you want to get in your scene. Now, if you're not liking the way the environment is being reflected, I would recommend hitting the R button on that environment layer that you created and try moving the Y rotation. And this is just going to move essentially like a sphere. It's going to spin your environment. And so I'm kind of digging some of the darkness that I'm getting at this angle. So I'm going to keep mine around 116 degrees. We'll adjust that a little later as we continue to build. So this is another great time to hit save to ensure that you're all set. And here I know I have my text all settled. I'm going to go ahead and turn off that action title safe. Now that I am good with those elements, let's start building the scene around it. To do this, I'm going to just simply drag my elements into the scene. You can tell that this element in particular is rather large, so I'm going to right click and go to transform, fit to comp. That's going to bring it down. Now you can create this all in Photoshop. You can build your own custom clouds like I mentioned before, but again, this is just a demo of showing you how I would comp up 3D text in After Effects. We're not going to really dive too deep into things like animation. I typically like to sandwich my text with different elements. I don't really need a 3D camera for this. I can kind of just utilize the space within. So if I go ahead and drag the cloud no background, that's going to noticeably be behind my wizard wand text. And if that's too big, you can always hit the scale button and scale that down just slightly. These are just any which way you want. If you need a place of contrast, or let's say you had a really bright area back here, that's something you're going to want to do. The next cloud I have, we had that, cloud no background. I have this big cloud that I can put in front of it. As you can see, it's rather large. We're going to need to scale that down. But we're going to put that in front and hit S for scale. And just pull this down a little bit. Once again, we're going to tweak these a little later. I just want it to kind of just ever so slightly, maybe just give the illusion that it's covering this. And this is something we can animate. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking these clouds do not look like they're a part of the scene. Maybe the background color, but overall, definitely not this front. So I'm going to use one of my favorite presets here, which is called CC Toner. CC Toner is a great way to kind of eyedropper and mirror different tones within your scene. And I'm going to just search for CC Toner, drag it on my cloud, and then use the eyedropper to select some lighter areas of that background color, some mid-tones, so maybe some of that lighter blue, and there you go, it's already coming together. And then maybe some of those darker blues as you see fit. Now, once you have those, you don't have to stick to them exactly, but you definitely can, go through and just adjust and see what feels right for you aesthetically. So that's looking almost good. I kind of want to brighten it just a little bit. That's perfect. Great. We can blend with the original. Another good one if you want to just bump it up a little bit. But overall, the great part about this is now we can copy this and we can actually paste it on that other cloud. So as soon as we do that, it's going to match those two different cloud colors. And, if I were animating this, I could easily animate the position, moving in front, moving behind, right? We could open up this kind of wizardly style intro sequence. So again, this gives a little bit of compositional framing for future animation as we go. So let's just nudge this a little bit to the side and a little bit down just to give this, again, just a nice looking composition. And maybe we'll pull this one over and slightly up to be behind that W. There we go. So things are looking really, really good now. The next thing I love to do is I love to kind of mirror, because I can't do motion blur. I like to mirror blur, motion blur with something like fast blur. So I'm going to do a fast box blur. That's a mouthful. And we're going to just open this up to maybe 1. The idea is we don't want anything looking terribly sharp. We're going to also put that on the clouds in the background as well. And we'll just type 1 there. We just want it just to be ever so hazy. Box blurs are really great for that. You could do that with the background image as well. It just gives it a little bit of that almost like it's been in motion kind of look. So this is looking really great right now. The next thing we really want to start adding are just some kind of color corrections throughout, and then we'll kind of put it all together. So to do that, I'm going to go to animation. I'm going to go to layer new, and we're going to go to adjustment layer, and we're going to call this VFX. And we're not really doing visual effects. We're just kind of color grading and things. And I'm going to move that above all of my layers. I'll probably not touch the environment layer, even though I know it doesn't affect it. I always like to have that environment layer at the very top. And let's look for some other effects. One of my favorites is CC Vignette. So let's go ahead and drag CC Vignette on there. And I really like to expand the vignette here just to get that ring. I also like to up the pin light just a little bit. That's going to brighten it ever so slightly. The next one I love to use, I always love to add a little bit of noise to this, or grain. So let's look for the add grain filter, and let's add that maybe above the noise. Now, a lot of people use this incorrectly. By default, it's in viewing mode. I would recommend going to final output. I then would also recommend trying out some of these presets in here. I'm going to use the high quality camera, and then I'm going to do blend with original, and I just want that to be ever so slight. So we're going to almost blend it out as we go. And all of these different noise modes are going to really help give you the look that you're looking for. So we just want it to kind of be softened, feel like, maybe it was playing on that movie screen and whatnot. There you go. So things are looking rather nice here. So we have our clouds, we have that background element. Now is really time to start thinking about locking some of our layers. So we're going to focus a little bit more on the the environment here, and let's just boost this up ever so nicely. So to get back to those settings, I'm going to hit A on my keyboard twice, and I'm going to go through here and start playing with some of the other settings. So now that I can see things, I may start playing with things like the bevel. So I can pull up my bevel depth here to really get that stylized kind of puffy look. I can pull back down that whole depth just to give it, and you can now see we're getting elements. Remember, we are in half resolution. I am zoomed in over 200%, but go through and adjust to your liking. Start playing with, do you want to get some of that reflection in there? Do you want it to be a little sharper? That's looking really, really nice as we go. We can continue to rotate that background as well, but I am digging this. This is right where I want it. The final step, let's go back to that VFX layer and let's look up Lumetri. Lumetri color. We're going to drag that to the very top, and we're going to go to the creative category and look at all these. Let's go blue cold. Look at that. Gives it that dark appearance. We can also go and play with some different colors. So that's the gold tobacco look. That gives us a really nice look. This color grading is a great way to, again, give yourself that cinematic quality, and you can tell there's, quite a few options that you can go through, some of which, that's actually rather nice as well. Maybe we can move that down. I like those greens that it's pulling in. There we have it. So we can lower this a little bit and just kind of bring it back to that mix. So now that we have everything in place, we want to play a little bit with the render quality. So to do that, we're going to go ahead and up things. We're going to be very careful that we don't blow out the graphics card here, but we're going to go to full resolution, let that render in, and we're going to go back to this drop down and go to render options. Now I have mine set pretty in the middle. By default, yours may be down here. So if you're getting a lot of noise, not counting the grain that we put in, but just in general, you may want to lift that up. Now, if you have a really nice computer, you can go a little higher in there, but we'll give that a second to render the frame, and there you have it. So once again, just a little bit of a cinematic title that you can create with Adobe After Effects. I actually love composing things in After Effects and really pushing the boundaries of what we can do. I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and I will catch you in the next one.